Hey everybody in Crawl Space Ninja Land, how are you doing today? This is my very first live stream, and I got to admit I'm a little nervous. I don't know if there's anybody out there or not that are going to show up, but anyway, we're going to put on some good information for all of you about crawl space repair, basement waterproofing, maybe. So we'll see how it goes. I've got my lovely assistant Tiffany helping me out, and she's going to be sending me questions that people have. But just wanted to welcome each and every one of you to the Crawl Space Ninja live feed, our first ever. So thank you very much for being here. Before we get started, I just want to say that if for any reason you all would like to do a private consultation with me, we will make that available. It's on Buy Me a Coffee. We've been doing quite a bit of private consultations for folks that have issues with their crawl space that maybe the videos that we put out don't help with. And also, we've got a big sale coming up, Labor Day sale. And we're going to put some information about that as well. And of course, we've got the Ninja Dry Pro 70 dehumidifier launching very, very soon. We got a great pre-sale going on with that. So anyway, just wanted to let you all know. So let's get started with our very first Ask a Ninja question. We are remodeling a home that has a crawl space of 8 to 16 inches in most spots with dirt and vents. We are remodeling room by room and redoing subfloors as well. We are trying to decide the best course of action to deal with the crawl space. We live in South Louisiana. We do know that we have to leave a termite gap. We don't know how accessible the crawl space will be in the future after remodeling is complete. There don't seem to be many companies that know how to do crawl space encapsulation in my area. What would you suggest to deal with our crawl space? I've actually spoken to several people in Louisiana that have similar situations. And this is a big problem when the crawl space is so low that you can't put an exterior access into the crawl space. So it sounds like they're having to redo their subfloor and possibly some joists due to wood rot, fungus, maybe moisture problems, things like that. So as they're going along doing that room by room situation, I would encourage you to go ahead and encapsulate the crawl space first. All right, so go ahead and put the plastic down while the subfloor is removed. It's a lot easier to get access to that crawl space. If you could, whenever the project is all said and done, if you could put some kind of hatch from the living space down into the crawl space, that would also be recommended. And of course, if the crawl space is too low where you cannot fit a dehumidifier in there, assuming you have enough room in the living space, you can always put the dehumidifier in the living space. And if it's a ductable dehumidifier, you could duct the dry air down one side of the crawl space and pull the moist air out from another side. So the dehumidifiers, especially the Aprilaire and some of the others, have these collars on them where you could direct the dry air in and out, or you could use fans. You can use like the whisper fan, cut a smaller hole in the crawl space. You got a dehumidifier running in your living space, and you're pushing that dry air down into that crawl space section with that whisper fan through a smaller 4-inch hole versus a 10-inch hole that the dehumidifier comes with. So hopefully that'll help you out. And see, we got another question from Steve. Hi, Mike. Do you guys cover Cumberland County just west of Knoxville? Absolutely. Steve, we do cover Cumberland County. As a matter of fact, we've gone as far as Cookeville, Tennessee. So if you need us to help you out down there, we'd be more than happy to do that. How flexible is the Hydraway to bend at 90-degree corners? All right, so one of the issues that we first had with Hydraway is in Tennessee, we have what's called step footers. So if you're trying to create waterproofing system or put in a French drain inside the crawl space, and then all of a sudden the crawl space takes a dip down like that, the Hydraway normally only flexes this direction and doesn't do very well this direction. And of course, we always want to install it vertical, dig about 9 inches deep, and put the Hydraway in the soil. So what we found is that there are some 90s that you can use to, as you come and you need to turn a 90, there are some 90s available on our DIY store where you can turn it down. You can then reattach Hydraway, go down as far as you need to, and then create another 90 if you have a little bit of a drop off. So that's one of the things that we have found to overcome those step footers or that uneven terrain in many of the crawl spaces that we face here in East Tennessee. We've got some houses, especially, in Gatlinburg, that are built on the sides of mountains. So of course you can have like a huge drop and then have to pick it back up. So that's a great way to do that if you need to. So you could also maybe turn the Hydraway, but I like the 90 degrees. And again, those are available on the DIY store. If you just look up Hydraway, you should be able to see those. So that was a great question. Let's see. We've got another Ask a Ninja from Incognito. Very nice. How much does the 12 mil 10 by 100 vapor barrier weigh? And is it manageable for only one person to DIY? All right, so let me look up real quick. I think we have the weight on the DIY store. I believe that it is roughly, let's see, before I tell you, it is about, well, it doesn't really say. I think it's close to 100 pounds, like between 80 and 100 pounds, if I remember correctly. Okay, so let's just say it's between 80 and 100 pounds, maybe not quite that much. But how I recommend people, if you're installing the vapor barrier by yourself, it's very, very difficult to kind of do these types of DIY projects when you're by yourself. So that's what I like about the butyl tape. All right, the two-sided rubberized butyl tape is very handy whenever you're doing the crawl space by yourself. When I first got started, I was a lone wolf. I didn't want to hire people to help me out or any of that sort of thing. So I would go down there and I'd crawl out, cut the plastic, bring a section in, and I would put that butyl tape up and then put the plastic up and then stretch it out and then, roll. I'd have a little roller that I'd roll that plastic on the butyl tape. So that way it was kind of like an extra set of hands for me. And then I would pre-drill because I couldn't afford a Hilti. So I'd pre-drill with a hammer drill and then put in a Christmas tree fastener or a Tapcon or something like that. So I really like the butyl tape if you're doing the project by yourself incognito. So that's a great question. Let me see. O.D. Norwood. My height from subfloor is 5 feet. Should the sump pump pipe be mounted that high? That's a really good question. We would take it up that high, just because I like that sump pump discharge line to go up and then be secured on that subfloor and then bring it back down and then discharge out below the soil level. Okay. Those sump pumps are pretty powerful. And when we first started doing these projects, I did like everybody else. And I would just 90 straight up and then 90 out the foundation wall. And over time, those things on, off, they just keep doing this. And we've actually had to go back and fix crawl spaces way back in the day. So that's when we decided just to take them all the way up, secure them to the subfloor. The other thing is those sump pumps like to rock inside of the basin. Okay, so if they're rocking back and forth inside that basin, they can actually shift all the way over to the side of the basin, and then that float can't work properly, and now you're in trouble. Okay, so anything you can do to keep that sump pump secure and in the center of the basin is always a great idea. All right, very, very good question. All right, George Lopez, what are the measurements for the Dry Pro 70? Very, very good question, George. The Dry Pro 70 will do 71 pints. The Ninja Dry Pro 70 is rated for 71 pints and up to 2,200 square feet. Now, keep in mind that is based on an 8-foot ceiling. All right. So it's very similar to the Aprilaire 70 or probably the Santa Fe Compact 2. I think all three of those are 70-pint dehumidifiers. The thing that Dry Pro does not do, though, is it does not have a duct collar. So if you need to duct the dry air to or from the dehumidifier, you'll need to go with probably the Aprilaire 70. But the Dry Pro is very quiet. It has a very quiet fan. It's all digital touch screen. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, make sure you take a look at the Ninja, the DIY store. It's just a cool product. All right. So it's quieter. The decibel levels is one of the quietest I've ever seen. I think it's even quieter than the E80. It's got the coils are treated, so they're not going to corrode, just like other products out there on the market. Many of the dehumidifiers made today do have coated coils. So that's kind of a thing of the past where they were uncoated. And it'll do up to 2,200 square feet, as I mentioned, 71 pints per day. You still want to have a condensate pump laying next to it if you need to discharge the water somewhere. But great question there, George. And thanks for doing that consultation with me today, George. And thank you for that 5-star review. As a matter of fact, real quick, I'm going to take a moment just to read this 5-star review on Google that George left for me. He and I did a consultation earlier today, and I appreciate you writing this real quick. I just want to say that Michael Church of Crawl Space Ninja is top-notch, #1 in my book. First of all, I love it when people brag on me. So thank you, George, for saying that. It's very kind of you. In all the years I've been doing DIY projects, this has been the best and most informative session I have ever had. A well-invested session led me to put in my order and complete my project exactly as shown on the very informative videos, and he definitely answered all my questions that I did not see in the videos. The pics I provided and the layout drawings before the session assisted Michael with additional insight on how to lay out the dehumidifier and how to ventilate the space on my situation. I will be posting more pics and have targeted the completion date of September 21st. This will be done all by myself on weekends and some in between weekdays. Keep up the great work and keep making videos. I will certainly refer others to explore them and encourage them to book a session with you. Well worth it. Thank you for saving me thousands of dollars. Well, thank you, George, for writing that fantastic review. And that's really what this is all about. I know not a lot of contractors are, very forthcoming with information. And even, to be honest, some of the franchise owners that we have in our system don't like that we give out as much information as we do. But the reason why we do this is because we want you to be very well educated as a homeowner. Because the way I look at it is, if you're a DIYer like George, there's a really good chance you're probably not going to hire us anyway. So why not tell you what to do and show you how to do it? But if you are a homeowner that wants to hire someone to do it, the better educated you are as that consumer, you're going to be less likely to have the wool pulled over your eyes by those competitors out there that are saying dumb things like dehumidifiers kill mold, or if I install a sump pump, it'll lower the humidity level, stuff like that. It's a lot easier to come across a well-educated consumer today than it was 20 years ago when we got started. And I really believe that the channel helped with that a lot. So appreciate all of you all watching. And thank you again, George, for that wonderful review. So let's see what else. How do you cut the Hydraway? Just with a razor knife, OD Norwood. That's how we do it. We just use a razor knife, just cut it. The thing about the Hydraway, and I apologize, I don't have a piece sitting here next to me. Its kryptonite is the end. Okay, so if you cut it, all right, make sure you tape the end up. You do not want any kind of debris getting in the end of the Hydraway. You cannot use Hydraway as a downspout extension, okay, because all of the debris coming down from that downspout, the little helicopters, the roof items, the shingle deposits, all that, if it gets into that Hydraway, it will clog it. Okay. And if you're using it for basement waterproofing and you decide to go from Hydraway to a drain system that the water goes in the top, make sure you turn the Hydraway and tape it so that it's got the felt to only allow the water to pass through the Hydraway. Okay, so hopefully that helps you out. But you can cut it, you can turn it and tape it, and that'll keep all of the soil out, and that way you don't have to worry about it clogging. Good stuff. It says the vapor barrier is 61 pounds. Well, thank you. Thank you for finding that for me, Tiffany. Very nice. I appreciate that information. So 61 pounds is a lot better than 80 to 100 pounds. So it sure feels like 80 to 100 pounds when I pick it up. I know that much. All right. So Greg Miller, my Aprilaire keeps my crawl space at 45%. Is that too low? Do I need to bump it up to 50? That's a good question. Now, I will always set a dehu on 50%. Okay, and then allow it to drop. Normally, the way these things work is they'll drop 3 to 4% below your set point, and then climb back up, 3 to 4% above the set point is the way I understand. I apologize. I got like a little bug flying around me, so if you see me like slap him here in a minute. And then that way, the humidity stays between 45% and 55% relative humidity. There is no perfect relative humidity, but according to all the information that I've read, between 45 and 55% is great. So as long as you're not going below that, Mr. Miller, I would think that you're okay. Now, if you have your dehu set on 45%, there's a good chance it's dropping a little bit below that. Probably still not a big deal, but I just like to set it on 50, and then it'll hover between that 45 and 50%. I don't know if you've seen the ash rate chart. We've done quite a few videos about those. But if you start to get the humidity too low, it can actually be a problem for indoor air quality just as much as the humidity being too high. So the 45 to 55% is a great range to be in. All right, so Irena, I'm sorry, I'm just going to say Rivkin. Okay, so I apologize. I'm not very good at pronouncing names. I'm so sorry. I bought your tape, Christmas tree fasteners, vapor barrier, and it was installed mostly, but one of the crawl space foundation walls is unusual. Stones held together by cement, but no matter how much the contractor cleaned, the tape won't stick. And if trying to drill, the section got crumbles. So the contractor stopped after trying. Yeah, that butyl tape, there is not any kind of seam tape, butyl tape, or anything else that sticks very well to a crumbling stone, brick, even block. We've even seen some block walls that were pre-treated with something to make them not absorb moisture, and the butyl tape wouldn't even stick to that. All right, so one of the things just that you might be able to do is you could use a little bit of spray foam, or even put a fur strip, like a pressure treated fur strip, across there, and then attach the vapor barrier to that fur strip, and then caulk behind the fur strip so that way it's air sealed behind it. But be real careful with these brittle stones. The reason why the only time I really like spray foam in a crawl space, especially in a situation like you're describing, I like closed cell spray foam in that situation, because the closed cell spray foam will actually cause that wall that's crumbling on you to become a better integrity. Okay, so that might help a lot. So I don't know if you can spray foam that wall, if your contractor has any experience using spray foam, but those 2 component froth packs might be worth looking at. And then you just spray foam that entire wall. And if you do that, the spray foam itself is the vapor barrier, plus it's insulated. And then you can just bring your plastic up to the spray foam and use a Christmas tree fastener if you need to attach the plastic to the spray foam. So hopefully, Rivkin, that will help you in that situation. So if you need some follow-up on that, let me know. Let's see, Aprilaire E100 or Santa Fe Oasis 105. I honestly do not know anything about the Santa Fe Oasis 105. I actually had a conversation with the folks over at Santa Fe last week, and it sounds like the 105 is a great product. It's a digital readout product. They've really done some cool stuff to the technology. I think that was the one that they had like a lot of tests run on it, and it supposedly is working very well. I believe the price points are similar. So if it was me, the only thing I haven't seen the Oasis 105. If it comes with the duct collars and is the same price as the Aprilaire, then I would probably choose the one that's the least expensive one. If it doesn't come with the duct collars and you have a need for duct collars on it, I know the Aprilaire does come with duct collars. I'm not sure about the Oasis 105, but I believe they're very similar. And obviously 105, I would assume, is 105 pints. So you might get a little bit more moisture pull with the Oasis 105 than the Aprilaire. But other than that, I can't recommend one way or the other. I apologize. George, again, I meant the size to fit through the crawl space. I meant the size to fit through the crawl space. Okay, I'm not sure what that means, George. Tiffany's writing some more information for me, so hopefully we'll be able to get that information for you. So, from the last question you answered for him, okay. Where is it? So let's see, George. My apologies. I'm very, what are the measurements for the dry? Oh, to fit into the crawl space. Oh, okay, I see. So how big, it is I believe a 13 by 13. My apologies, George. You're wanting to know the dimensions of the dehumidifier. Okay. So I believe the dimensions of the dehumidifier, if I'm not mistaken, is a 13 by 13. But let me double check. Hopefully we put that information on the website because that's where I'm headed. Let's see, it does not have it, but I will double check that and we will get that added to the website. But I believe it's a 13 by 13 by 24. So as long as you've got, 13 by 13 inches, it should just slide right in there, George. But I'll double check on that. My apologies. All right, what else? Michael, based on our conversation this morning, would the Dry Pro 70 work or should it be Aprilaire? Either one is fine. With the size of your crawl space, I would, either one should work. So if you're more concerned about having a duct collar, I would go with the Aprilaire. If you want a less expensive dehumidifier, then I would go with the Dry Pro. But both of them, either the Aprilaire 70 or the Dry Pro 70 are very similar in output as far as taking moisture out of the air. So hopefully that helps you out. I had my crawl space encapsulated, dehumidifier and vent fan installed in my crawl space on our new build home. There are walls uninsulated between the foundation block and the floor joist. The floor joist insulation was removed. What should the walls in the crawl space be insulated with? Okay, so depending on your location, you can go anywhere from an R5 if you're way down in the south below Atlanta, for example, that corridor down through there, you can be as low as an R5 insulation. And then the highest I've ever seen is R10. Now, I'm not sure, like in, super cold areas like New England or Minnesota or things like that, but you would need at least an R10 right below North Georgia line and up, I believe, is where that R level, that R factor changes from R5 to R10. As far as what you insulate the foundation walls with, I would use either ground contact foam board, like the stuff that you can get at Home Depot or Lowe's. Just make sure it's rated for ground contact. You can use that, or you could use insulation vapor barrier, or we have foam board on our DIY store. The problem with foam board on the DIY store is that you pretty much have to order a pallet of it and then we drop ship it to you. It's quite expensive. So unless you have like a dock door or something like that you have access to, I would probably just go with the insulation vapor barrier. What I like about insulation vapor barrier is that it's a one-time install. Like the conversation George and I had earlier, he was going to do foam board and then he would have to do plastic over it. And that's what we used to do. But last year we switched to the insulation vapor barrier. and then you can fur it out a little bit. It creates a bit of an air gap. And according to the manufacturer, if you create a 3/4 inch air gap behind the insulation vapor barrier, and I've got a video on how to do it, just type in Crawl Space Ninja install insulation vapor barrier. You'll see the video on how we furred it out with spray foam. As long as you have that 3/4 inch air gap behind it, it takes it from an R8.7 to an R12. So that's nice, is that you can actually get that insulation vapor barrier a little bit better R value than the foam board. And it's a one-time install, and it fits in any door because it's a rolled up 25 by 400 square foot section, which will fit into a door. George was having the same problem we were having, where you have to buy a 4x8 sheet of foam board, and then you got to cut it down, get it inside the door, and then reassemble it back on the wall. So that is very time consuming. And I believe the insulation vapor barrier was a little bit more expensive than what he had calculated on foam board, but he thought it was worth the time savings, according to our conversation that we had, to pay a little bit more for that insulation vapor barrier versus the foam board, because it's going to save him a lot of time. So hopefully that helps you out. All right. So my crawl space is 2,400 square feet. It is highly recommended to use duct kit with Aprilaire E100 to get the air circulation and dehumidifier work better effectively. Okay. So again, the 2,400 square foot space that we're talking about, the E100 is plenty big enough to handle that space. In most cases, basements, allow air to move a little bit easier than crawl spaces. Okay. So if you have a crawl space that maybe has a foundation wall that is separating two halves of the crawl space, or you have large ductwork going through the crawl space, anything that can block air or minimize air transfer from one section of the crawl space to another, then using the duct kit with the Aprilaire is a great idea. So that way you could literally blow that dry air to anywhere you wanted to. Another thing that people forget is that you can use a fan. Okay, so if you had the dehumidifier sitting near the door, for example, of the crawl space, and you're blowing the dry air to the back of the crawl space, you can have a fan like the Whisper fan mounted up above the dehumidifier. And the reason why I like the Whisper fan is because it has smaller ducting. It's only 4 inches, and you can run those ducts anywhere you want as well. You can even run a return air from that moist part of the crawl space if it's really broken up, and bring it back, and then discharge that moist air near the dehu with a T, and then circle it back through the fan, and then blow dry air back into that section. So you can get real creative with these fans, and it's easier to work with that 4-inch duct versus that 10-inch duct. And 4-inch duct is also cheaper than 10-inch duct. The other thing about hooking it up to the dehumidifier, I got him. The other thing about hooking it up to the dehumidifier is it's like any other hose. The longer the run, the less air pressure. Okay, so if you've got 20, 30 feet of 10-inch ductwork, you may just barely be getting any air blowing out at the end. All right, so you want to be mindful of that too. Same if you're trying to draw the air back to the dehumidifier. So I don't recommend you really go more than 10, 15 feet when you're ducting these DUs. That's what I like about the Whisper fans. They're a lot more versatile. So great question. All right, so I recently encapsulated my crawl space and added a dehumidifier 2-inch foam on the exterior block and constant exhaust. My question is, how can I get rid of the dusty, musty smell that seems to linger up through the floor into the living space? I thought the exhaust would help, but hasn't seemed to make a huge difference. The smell is most obvious when coming home and the living area has been stagnant. I do not have central air conditioning to filter the air of the house. I feel that this would be the ultimate solution, but budget isn't there yet. Any other suggestions would be great. What products do I need to use in what order to remove the mold? All right, so that was the second question. All right, the first question, if you're getting a musty smell from the crawl space, up into the living space. Remember, the stack effect can take the crawl space air up into the living space, and some estimates say that up to 50% of the air can move from the crawl space into the living space. All right, so here's the situation that I have seen whenever you're dehumidifying and you're running a positive pressure or an active ventilation system out of the crawl space. Check under the plastic and see if you removed all of the debris, anything that is organic that could grow mold. All right. Get that out from underneath the plastic if you can. Make sure that's got to be like a first step. Okay. And I'm not a big fan of leaving down old plastic either and covering it with new. Okay. It's kind of like if you ever had a leak on that old plastic, like any kind of sewer, gray water leak on that old plastic, you're just going to trap it under the vapor barrier, under that new plastic. So if you haven't, and I'm not saying you didn't, but if you did not, make sure you're getting all the debris from underneath the plastic. And then if there's any old plastic, get that out and then put new plastic down. You want to make sure the soil is very, very clean. The other thing you can do is you can actually treat the soil with sodium bicarbonate because it's a good deodorizer. So if you can pick up, 50, 100 pounds of sodium bicarbonate and kind of sprinkle it on the soil, that helps a lot too. And then the last thing is you want to make sure that there is no mold on the joists. All right. And just because you don't see mold doesn't mean there isn't mold. Okay. So in other words, if before you put that dehumidifier in, the wood moisture level was wet. If you had 20 plus wood moisture level, but you did not visibly see any mold, I would still recommend you treat the wood with some type of mold cleaner or disinfectant. You don't have to scrub it, obviously, because there's nothing visible to scrub, but at least spray like the Anabec Advanced Cleaner or the YCS Cleaner on there in order to remove any type of unseen mold that could be there. Okay, so hopefully that helps you out on that. All right. What products do I need to use and in what order to remove mold? All right, so I did a video about this. It's mold protocol video basically, but here are the steps. The first thing you got to do is you got to dry out whatever you're going to treat. Okay, so if it's your subfloor and your joists, they have to be dry. If there's insulation between the subfloor and the joist, that has to be removed. You want to expose all of the wood. Some older homes will have a foil between the joists. That needs to be removed. Okay, so I want to see nothing but bare wood up above me. Okay, then I want to install a dehumidifier to dry that wood out and to get that humidity below 60%. Okay, let that happen. Then you come back in with your moisture meter and you test the different sections of the wood, make sure that the wood is dry. They say below 20%. I'm more of a fan of below 15%. And it does depend on the type of wood. Like pine holds more moisture, I think, than oak does, for example. So, pine may be a 15% wet, where in the same time frame, oak would be 12% wet. But the point is, get it under about 15%, no matter what type of wood you're dealing with. Then you want to cover that dehumidifier up. By the way, you also need ground plastic. Okay, always have ground plastic down, even if it's just a temporary 6 mil plastic just to cover the earth while you're drying out the crawl space. Because if you put a dehumidifier on bare earth, the earth is going to give up moisture, and the dehumidifier will have a harder time drying the wood above. So make sure that the ground is covered with some type of throwaway plastic if you need to, but cover the earth. All right, let the wood dry out. Then you want to apply mold cleaner after you've sealed up the dehumidifier. You don't want anything getting in that dehumidifier. Apply mold cleaner. Make sure you're wearing PPE. Make sure you got HEPA scrubbing going on. All this is in that video that I made in a lot more detail. And then if you've got visible mold, you want to scrub all that off. And then after the wood looks real pretty, and the mold's been killed and the cleaners are dry and all that, then you can apply the Anabec X70 if you want to protect it from growing new mold. And then uncover the turn the dehumidifier back on, let it get the humidity and everything back under control. So hopefully that is mold protocol off the top of my head in 45 seconds or less. Hopefully that answers your question. So, all right, John Doe writes, my crawl space is 1,200 square feet and 6 feet tall on one end, 1 foot tall on the other. You must live in Gatlinburg, John. Which way should the Aprilaire 80 blow? To the tall end or the low end? That is a good question. Wow, that is a really good question. I normally don't like hanging dehumidifiers, but in that case, I would probably put the dehu closer to the subfloor near the lowest point of the crawl space, and then blow into the big area of the crawl space. So blow the dry air into the more cubic footage area of the crawl space. Okay, that's probably how I would handle it. So my thoughts are, if you put it in the 6 foot tall section, you're going to be blowing it at the dirt, and then it's got to creep up the hill. I don't think that's going to be easy for that air to do. So I'd rather you have it on the low section and then blow, and then it'll fall down into that deeper section. I think is probably the best way to handle it. And hopefully the door is up here that shorter section, so that way it's easier to get to. So good question, John. I appreciate that. I've not had that question before. With encapsulating crawl spaces, how do you deal with houses that are in flood zones or floodways? FEMA requires flood vents. With the encapsulation, you want to limit the amount of exterior or into the space. That is very true. All right, so believe it or not, the insurance company has as much say in how you're encapsulating your crawl space as FEMA guidelines. As a matter of fact, I would personally, if I lived in a flood zone, I would call my insurance company and ask them what they recommend on that situation. Because the way we don't deal with a lot of flood zones here. We did a great video with the Wilmington folks. Andrew and I did a video about a year or so ago. Really good video if you live in a floodplain. They deal with a lot of coastal flooding. So he did all the research and got all the information about flood zones. So type in Crawl Space Ninja coastal flooding, I think is the name of the video on YouTube. And it's a lot more detail. But from what I understand, you've got to have vents that will open if the water comes in, because without that, it'll actually collapse the foundation wall. Okay. And in those scenarios, I would also make sure, I got another, I don't know what it is with all these bugs. They're everywhere. I would also make sure I put the dehumidifier up close to the subfloor. So that would be one of the instances where I would encourage you to hang it, because if that flooding happens and the dehu's on the ground, you're going to lose the dehumidifier. So anyway, I would assume if you got HVAC or anything else down there, that would also be up to the subfloor. So I know that's not answering your question, because like I said, I don't know a lot about flood zones, but I would get as much guidance as I could from your insurance company, and watch that video that Andrew and I did about flooding in the coastal regions, and that should help you out. All right, I bought a house that was built in 1940 of cinder block, but the floor beams are laid right on top of the dirt. Ooh, that ain't good. Of course, the wood rotted and the floor sunk. I have removed all the floor and interior walls. The building is only 33 feet by 18 feet. I rented an excavator and dug out the crawl space so I can seal it and work under the floor for HVAC, electrical, and plumbing for the remodel. I would encourage you, if you're going to do something like that, get an engineer involved. Call a structural engineer and make sure that you're not doing something to compromise that footer, if there even is one. There may not even be a footer. Okay, so make sure that you do something with an engineer for that type of situation, because I am not a big fan of digging dirt out of a crawl space. Those footers were put there when that soil was what's called virgin soil. It's very compacted, and if you start excavating that soil out, then you can see those walls start to bow in on you like this if you're not careful. And then you got a big problem you're dealing with. Okay. So anyway, definitely get an engineer involved, and or call a foundation repair company and have them put you some helical piles or some piers to help support that wall. So that way they're going down to bedrock. They're going to help keep those walls from moving on you as well. But I would certainly consult a professional in your area before digging out too much of that. Discuss our new best products since you are swatting that. Oh, Tiffany. Discuss our newest and pest products since I am swatting gnats, is what she's saying. Yeah, I got some drain flies in here. I don't know. This isn't scripted, but there's a new product, and the video is coming out next week about drain flies. So if you all have not seen some of our latest products on our DIY store, if you go to the pest control section of our DIY store, we have some really cool products. We've teamed up with Nisus, which is I believe the maker of the manufacturer of the oldest termite product, or one of the oldest termite products out there, called Boracare. They are a great company. They're just located down the road from us. They've got some really neat products. They got this one called Foam Fresh, which actually degreases and gets rid of odors and different things like that. And then there's another one called Bacazap, and I believe that one actually gets rid of drain flies too. So make sure you read about those products. There's a snake out. Man, my mother-in-law, I need to sell some of that to her. She is terrified of snakes. And I don't know if y'all know this, but in the state of Tennessee, it's actually illegal to kill snakes. She doesn't care though. I won't tell you what her name is, but I don't want her to get arrested. Anyway, Snake Out is really cool product that we now have available on the DIY store. So if you're afraid of snakes, we also got a product called Web Out, which helps a lot with spiders. Anyway, great videos that we've done recently on there. And then Nyban, that is a really cool product. As a matter of fact, we're working on getting our pest control license here in the state of Tennessee, so that we can start applying Nyban and Boracare in our crawl space projects, because Nyban, you can actually sprinkle it under the plastic before you put that down, and it'll take care of cave crickets, ants, different stuff like that. It's waterproof, so it's a bait system. So if you haven't checked out that Nyban, that's a really cool product as well. But drain flies, I'm gonna get me some Foam Fresh and take care of these drain flies. So thanks, Tiffany, for the recommendation. Very good stuff. When I dug down about 5 feet, there was standing water. After rain, it is now more, but only about 9 inches deep. Okay, well, that probably is an indication of your water table rising. And, I want to cover that real quick. The water table. Not everybody understands this, but when we go to inspect a crawl space, we're only there for, hour and a half. So we're only seeing a snapshot in time. So we are looking at signs of moisture. Now that could be, mud on top of the plastic. It could be the foundation wall is damp, so we're putting our meter on the wall. But HUD.gov, the Housing and Urban Development folks, came out with an interesting paper, I think a few years ago, talking about the water table, and it's very interesting. So what they say is, if the floor of the crawl space is lower than the dirt outside the crawl space, so if this is my foundation wall, and here's my crawl space wall, and here's the outside dirt, if this is lower than this, your water table rising up into the crawl space can flood the crawl space without you even knowing it, because you're a good 12 to 24 inches above that low spot in the crawl space. So we always recommend, based on that article, that you install an interior French drain system inside the perimeter of the crawl space with sump pumps. So that way, if for some reason your home takes one of those 100-year floods, it's protected. Because the worst thing you can do is spend, $8, $10, $12, $20,000 on encapsulating the crawl space. and not put in an interior French drain system, and then it ruins the plastic and voids the plastic warranty because you did not do that. So I think that was a really good article that they wrote about that. Same thing with the basement. You know, those of you living up north and you got a lot of these basements, especially these older homes, eventually that exterior waterproofing system or that exterior French drain system will fail if they even installed it. There are municipalities in Tennessee that don't even require exterior French drain systems around homes. That to me is like the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And, you know, it just gets the builders to where they don't have to put it in and then they don't have to worry about it. They built it to code. So you as a homeowner, you as a consumer, this is your home, protect your investment. Go ahead and install that interior waterproofing system with the sump pump as part of the encapsulation. Even if you don't think there's going to be a problem in the future, or even if there's not a problem now, there will most likely be a problem in the future. So make sure you do that. My plan is to level the crawl space about 3 feet deep. Install drain piping with silt sock, crock, and dual sump pump with a battery backup. Then seal the floor and walls, insulate walls, and install dehumidification along with the radon fan as mentioned in your book. Well, that's very kind of you. Speaking of my book, if you haven't checked it out, it's on Amazon. It's called Crawl Space Repair Myths Busted. So make sure you check that out. And if you have read my book and you think that I did an okay job, I'm not much of a writer, but if you liked it, I hope you'll write me a review on Amazon as well. So thank you again. I appreciate you telling me that the book helped you out. It's very kind of you to say so. All right, so questions. We're going to be wrapping it up here pretty soon. So should I dig a trench around the perimeter for drain piping or just lay it on top of a level clay? Should I dig a trench around the perimeter or lay it on top of level clay? Contractor said this would work, but I want the drain the water before it reaches the floor level. Yeah, absolutely. You got to dig a trench and put the pipe under the ground. Is that what you're asking me? So basically, if it's like an NDS easy flow, I like to have it, you know, about an inch below the dirt. The Hydraway is installed 9 inches deep. They like it about 3 inches below the dirt because the Hydraway is a cavity system that allows more water to enter and it gets that done. So I don't ever like to put drainage systems on top of soil. I like to bury them in the soil. Should I cover the entire surface with gravel or just around the drain pipe and leave the dirt compacted? I don't like putting gravel on all of the crawl space just because what if you've got to remove it? With the Hydraway, you actually don't need gravel around the pipe because it's already built in with a sock filter and all that sort of stuff. So if you could get them to use Hydraway, gravel is not needed. If they use the NDS Easy Flow, it's already got the aggregate and the sock around it. You don't need gravel there either. But if you don't have, if you just got a pipe with a sock, then yeah, they want to put gravel around it. What should I use to insulate the block walls under 12 mil plastic on top of the plastic? We like to put it under the plastic if we're using foam board on the block walls. The old way we did it was foam board, plastic over. Now we use the insul barrier, which is insulation and vapor barrier together. I mentioned that earlier in this video. Would concrete cap be a benefit? I'm not sure what concrete cap is. I apologize. I am considering floor hydronic heat. Does this create more problems or could it work here? I'm not sure about the floor heat. I would think that floor heat would need insulation below it or you're going to lose the heat down into the crawl space. But I would ask your flooring contractor about that. Who manufactures the Dry Pro 70? It is manufactured in China. You know, it's manufactured for us through a distribution channel. So we could not find a American-based manufacturing company to do that. But it does have a 5-year warranty, bumper to bumper. So a lot of the dehumidifiers made in America are assembled in America, even though the parts come from China. So if you want an American-made dehumidifier, you can either go with the Aprilaire or the Santa Fe. But good question there, Davis Brantley. Thank you for asking. All right. It looks like we are about done. How are warranty claims handled? We have the warranty claims go through our South Carolina distribution center. So inside the book, there is an 800 number. We also have a link inside the book to our DIY store, so you can make warranty claims there. And then we would either repair it or ship you out a new one if you had an issue from the DIY store here in Tennessee. So we can wrap up after. All right, very good. Tiffany says we can wrap up. So wait, I see one. Is Joshua Horn says, is it against code? This will be my last one for the evening. Joshua, you are the winner of the last question. So is it against code to send water from the dehumidifier into the sewer? Yes. All the municipalities that I have seen, yes, it is against code to send sump pump or dehumidifier water into the sewer system. But even if it wasn't, if that sewer system ever backs up, you gave it a direct access into your crawl space. And I have seen a lot of lazy crawl space contractors stick that. You know what's really weird is I don't know why, but around here, the plumbers like to do it. They'll actually, if they install a dehumidifier, they'll actually run the plumbing line into the sewer and drain line, the 4-inch sewer line in the house. Big no-no around here. And there's even, I did a video about that probably 2 or 3 years ago. There are some municipalities, of course, they'll never find out unless somebody rats on you usually, but there are some municipalities that'll actually fine you if they catch you doing that. So good question there, Joshua. Appreciate that information. And my name is Michael Church, and I want to recap a couple things. We're going to do this every month. All right. So the end of every month, be sure to tell your friends, check out the book, check out the new pest control products, check out the Ninja Dry Pro 70, and make sure you check out Buy Me a Coffee if you need a consultation. I hope this was good for you all. I really enjoyed this. This was fantastic, except for all the flies, the drain flies around me. Other than that, it was great hanging out with each and every one of you. I'm Michael Church of Crawl Space Ninja. We hope you make it a happy and blessed day, and we'll see you later.